friends. Welcome to episode 203 of Storyteller Conclaves. This is a show all about helping you run the best tabletop role-playing game that you can, whether you're a new storyteller or dungeon master learning the craft, or an experienced storyteller looking to take your game to the next level. I'm Sarah.
I'm Rob.
How we doing, Rob?
You know, I'm a little tired, but like it's background tired, like body tired.
Mm-hmm.
My brain's there, but like my body's not willing.
Yeah. I had very much the same experience this afternoon. Like, I logged out of my work computer at 4:30, and I just like blinked at the screen and was just like, I just really want to take a nap right now.
Yeah.
Like, I hit you up on Discord, and I'm like, what if I didn't do the podcast tonight, and I just took a nap? And you're like, nope, wake up,
get up, wake
and
the
then
cluck up.
I got over here, and your wife made me a really strong margarita, which is an alcoholic depressant. So
yeah, we'll see how this show survives. We both had those, so
hopefully this tea wakes me up a little bit.
I think it will. It's a good tea. It's a good tea. So yeah, not a lot going on. Overall, I will say Sean is ramping up his game a little bit, which is based on Nova Praxis, the Savage World sci-fi setting.
It's one of several Savage World sci-fi settings.
Yeah.
It actually has not been updated for Savage World's Adventure Edition, so it's an old Explorer Edition version he's using.
It's a little different.
But the conversion to Adventure Edition is very it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
The changes aren't so sweeping that they're not directly compatible without a few little tweaks.
Yeah.
And he's put a lot of work into not only converting the stuff over, but he made a really good comprehensive player guide for us.
No, very much so. Very much so.
He made a digital character sheet for us in Google Sheets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then you saw he posted a picture to our group chat of some of that like cardboard terrain that he's been putting together.
It looks great. It looks amazing. Like that kind of stuff is always fun when you start pulling your things together, all your tool sets and everything.
It's really nice seeing the behind the scenes on that too, of someone else who's another storyteller and getting to like live with them through the creative process, because just watching all the energy and time he's put into it and stuff like that, and he was a little worried that people's reaction was a little maybe tepid or something like that, but like all it took was getting everybody kind of in Discord one night just to, hey, just had some questions about the setting. Is like, okay, this is going on and that's going on, and suddenly everybody's creative juices started flowing, and like the Discord just lit up with like, oh, I was thinking about this type of character, that type of character. I kept him up until 1 a.m. the other night, lying there in bed going, what if I played this type of character? Oh, I gotta talk to your brother because it would work so well with his character. I had the idea that like, think Halo, Cortana kind of sits inside Master Chief's head, right?
Yeah.
His brother was going to make a mnemonic character, very, very much styled around Johnny Mnemonic, right?
Okay, yeah.
With a couple other influences thrown in for flavor. But I thought to myself, what if I were a digital character, that essentially was like agoraphobic and didn't like being, having any sort of physical manifestation. So I just have an apartment inside of his skull memory.
Okay.
And I'm his tenant. I live with him, in his head full time.
Okay.
But kind of the symbiotic relationship he gets out of that is, of course, my character is like great at like running drones and just making sure that security cameras are turned off around him and drones are taken over and turned towards us, and so he's always got this field of like essentially grace that's around him at all times. Where if you didn't know that I was there also doing these things for him and making all the electronics work for him, that he would just have extraordinary good luck. And then I thought, that's got to be the name of my character, Grace.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah.
Okay, I like this. I when you started writing up the idea, I was like, that actually would work really well in the setting. I think it's really cool. What's even funnier about that is, I know the Halo universe, but some of our listeners don't. Is that the character Cortana, the aforementioned character in discussion, is actually a copy of the human progenitor doctor who generated her brain. So
she's technically a sim inside this in this setting,
right? And funny enough, that doctor kind of agoraphobic. honestly lived in like a capsule, dealt with people at a very different level.
Yeah.
Saw the world in a different slice. So there's a lot of comparison there that you can run from.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool.
And I also really like going into any game setting where you've got tight bonds between characters. You know, I know there's game settings that like do that during character creation. We talked about Dungeon World. We talked about, you know, Fate and stuff like that, where, you know, you start the game with these bonds, but it's almost like a mechanical sort of thing. You know, pick one person at the table who you don't trust.
Yeah, it's a helper,
pick one person at the table who you're going to try to fix, or you know, whatever.
Right.
And those are great prompts. But like, I love it when, you know, you get two people who just kind of organically go, our characters would work really well together. What if we wrote the same backstory and we, like, you know, have this bond and we come as a package deal, you know?
Yeah.
And I start thinking about the characters' motivations and stuff, like, you know, what house would she belong to? Same house as him.
Yeah.
She doesn't care about any of the Shadow War going on, but she cares about him.
Yeah.
So, you know, she can do whatever she can to facilitate him, you know?
Yeah. And the character concepts that I'm coming up with, I'm literally just throwing ideas to the wind, kind of a thing. Things that I've thought about, like, and the one part that I'm trying to do with myself is, like, okay, what slice of me do I want to take?
Yeah.
Do I want to take, like, the hacker character that I'm looking at? Like, do I want to take the 14-year-old version of myself who just got into bulletin board systems and was like, or I should probably say younger than that even, you know, who was out there on the edge, you know, learning how to phone freak, for those of you who remember what that was like.
Just watched Hackers one too many times during the 90s.
Exactly.
Was way too into Angelina Jolie.
I mean, it was kind of like The Mummy for us.
We all were into Angelina Jolie. Yeah, it's before there was The Mummy. You had Hackers.
You had Hackers. Honestly, you did.
You weren't born bisexual. You watch Hackers at a formative age, and it turns you bisexual.
That's right, because by the end, he's wearing a dress, and he wears that dress very well.
Johnny Lee Miller, man, young.
He wore that dress. That dress was amazing. If you rewatch the end of that movie, it's a good dress.
Oh, it is. I have vivid memories of it.
So it's fun getting those creative juices flowing. So much so that I discovered something today, and in 10 minutes sent something to Sean, and I'll show it to you later. So I'm just flipping through YouTube while I'm working on this SQL server.
Sure.
And trying to do stuff, and I see this video thing of, like, you know, AI prompt. Now, I follow the chat GPT stuff. I follow, like, all the Mid-Journey pieces and, and the stuff that's going on with art and design. And they were like, you can basically make Mid-Journey into a live avatar. And I'm like, go on. In 2 minutes, I did. I built an avatar in Mid-Journey, shoved it over to this video program, threw a pre-generated AI voice on it, gave it a script, and produced a video in 5 minutes.
I didn't even see this.
Nope. Didn't get a chance to send it to you yet. Sent it to Sean because I was like, how would you like to use this for your game to have some characters talking to us?
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll give you an example. It is. I'll kick it out on the Discord as well, so you guys can see the process and everything. But I wanted to. I slid it to David. I said I wanted to clear by him, like, hey,
oh my god,
should I keep this on the down low and let you throw this into your game as your show off? Or can I show it to Sarah tonight and put it out to Discord? He's like, no, go ahead and show Sarah. She already sees all the stuff that I'm working on anyway. She knows I'm working on this stuff. But it was the whole idea of that, like, it was a really cool thing, and it took me no time to do. Like, absolutely no time. So I'll kick it out there. I honestly think it would be a really good idea, especially for people who are using, as a tool, for people who are doing virtual games, and want a visual NPC character to talk to the group and have a different voice than their own.
That'd be pretty neat.
And it took me no time. I could have done this in, like, an interlude if I needed to have a quick, like, I don't know, a Johnson giving a mission briefing.
Yeah, right.
And it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. So
I absolutely love it.
So yeah, that kind of wraps up with today. This week's show was fun for me to try and, like, dig into, because I had interest in it, not necessarily doing it. Like, when I was a kid, and I say kid, and I do mean, like, between the ages of, like, God, scholastic years. I'll use that.
Yeah,
in
sure.
Scholastic years, I got myself this little 4-volume set of Choose Your Own Adventure books. They came in a little sleeve.
I loved Choose Your Own Adventure books. Those were some of my favorite types of books.
This
back
was
in the day.
before I gamed. This is before my first time looking at D&D.
Yeah.
I had this, like,
third, fourth grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had this little set, and I went through them, and I burned through them,
Mm-hmm.
gave them to a friend, and they disappeared. But that's okay. It was something simple.
Sure.
And I always look back on that.
Do me a favor. Let's talk about what a choose your own adventure book is just in case
Yeah,
anybody out there.
it's a little historical.
They were kind of ubiquitous for us, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure how ubiquitous they are anymore, or if they were ever outside of America or anything like that. So
They were, actually. I did a little bit of research on that part of it.
Cool.
So, choose your own adventure books were literally a odd form at the time of novella. And what it was is you'd start reading the opening of the book, and within a few pages you would be given a choice for what the character to do, as if it was you, that you are said character.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be a path, usually kind of an A or B, sometimes a C, and it would tell you, go to this page. And you'd flip to that page, and you'd continue reading.
Right. So
and then
like,
make another choice.
As an example, it would be like, the man walks over to you, and he's strange, and he's a little frightening, but he says, come with me, I want to show you something. Flip to page 52 if you go with him, but page 87 if you choose to run away from him.
If you turn to continue on your way.
Right.
Yeah. And these books were often small. They were often, I would say, no more than probably 100 pages.
150 at most.
Yeah. And you would have a whole adventure. Now, it was very scripted, obviously. You didn't get any choices other than what was presented before you, but in all honesty, truly looking back on it, it was a form of role play. So that kind of leads me into the discussion here of this week, and that is that we're talking about single-player systems. And that, for very much, was the genesis of me experiencing a single-player system. One where you could play your own role-playing game. And game books are kind of the gateway to that. Zork was a text adventure game for PC and before PC progenitors, where literally you were presented with an open keyboard of a scripted event where it was like, you find yourself in a forest and paths lead north, south, east, and west. Which way do you go? North. And it read you another piece of text. Very much similar. Those early games were a form of role play. You were playing a character in another world. I've now discovered that these game books have gone well beyond this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to flat out start this conversation off by saying Dungeon Dive, the YouTube channel, is wonderful. It is a treasure trove. I highly recommend going into it. Particularly what Daniel Davis does in that channel for this genre is wonderful.
Yeah, it would be absolutely remiss for us to do any more of this show and not credit the fact that essentially he helped us with a lot of our research on this topic because he had already documented it so thoroughly and helped us learn about this so we could bring it to you.
And it's a massive genre. I mean, I went and looked. The count that I found on DriveThruRPG was over 4,000 entries. And those were all just solo. Now, I'm sure there were some that I didn't get because they were international and the words didn't translate. But dear God, there's a lot out there.
And, that's, for me, this is right here the most shocking detail, I think, about this entire topic. Because I remember when we were jotting down this idea, you were like, hey, let's talk about single-player games. And I'm like, yeah, but really, how many of those are there? I mean, is that really a big enough topic that we could do a show on? And then we start looking into it, and it's 4,000 of them on DriveThruRPG alone.
Yeah.
And that's just what's on DriveThru,
Yeah. And that doesn't count the ridiculous number of published choose-your-own adventures out there, some of which are in the, and I do say this, thousands of pages.
Oh, wow.
There was one that I saw particularly that was well into 2,000 pages. And it's just a choose-your-own-adventure book.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's not a system. It's just choose-your-own-adventure.
Yeah.
But that's incredible. That means there's ridiculous number of paths in there that you can go.
Right.
Like, the story just grows. So, one of the things that Dungeon Dive did in one of their episodes was they did a great job of breaking down games into categories. Scripted versus sandbox, system versus tools, journaling versus structured. I am going to flat out say, if you want a very detailed walkthrough of single player game systems that are out there and you want some good examples, go watch that video. It will be an eye-opening experience.
I will say there is several videos by Dungeon Dive. If you just search Dungeon Dive single player, RPG or something like that, I mean, you're going to get at least 3 of them that I watched.
Yes.
That are, various levels of detail about specific games or whatnot.
I'll be putting out the link for our Discord members so that they can follow this. I also may throw a comment on the Instagram as well for those who aren't out there so that they can click on it. But it is a fantastic link that will take you there. But what we're going to do for the show, for our purposes, since we're primarily talking about storytelling as in a group setting, is I kind of want to focus on each one of the, I'm going to say groupings.
Subgenres, I suppose.
Or scoping, if you could say. And what the benefits those have for other gaming. And how they can help out both players and storytellers. So game books is that first step, in my opinion. A place where it's a choose-your-own-adventure novella. They're very scripted. There are some that are sandbox, like the one I told you about that are in the thousands of pages where, you're 30 or 40 choices in. Like, you're not going to go back and be like, oh, I remember this choice, I'm going to try something else. Like, every time you go in, unless you map your route through this book, it's going to feel like a new adventure. And I did see one where literally it says, start from this page, this page, this page, or this page for your adventure. And
so you've got new origins, so you're not repeating the same opening steps,
And there are some that go from book to book, which is even more interesting to me.
Skyrim even has a mod like that, by the way, so you don't have to redo the whole opening scene again.
And there has been a huge growth for adapting those types of novellas into the AI genre, where literally an AI will give you new scripting. So they're even more sandboxy. Which is great and wonderful, but it's still very, I would say, limiting. There are some game books that include dice and go into a full box set where it's still a single player novella. You're still going page by page, but instead of it being like, do you fight him? And it gives you the choice of whether you win or lose. You actually roll dice, keep track of your character stats, and decide, I won,
if you choose to fight, roll a d6. On a 4 or higher, turn to this page. On a 3 or lower, turn to this page.
It's a bit more than that, actually. It's like there's a system, and you say, I won, or I lost, and then you go on from there. And I think that's great. I think the big benefits of this genre is that it is very easy to get into, because it's just reading for the most part. There can be some character tracking, and you can do some journaling if you want to denote how things are going. But the key is it gives you the basic concepts of what role-playing really is. Like at the very core level, if you've never role-played, it's that person who looks at you and goes, what do you mean role-playing? You go, oh, it's D&D, and they're like, I know what the word means, but what is it? You could hand somebody one of these books and says, do this. And when they're done, be like, you role-played. There you go. That's role-playing. And you don't have to go into some dice explanation or math or anything or sitting at a table. It literally is giving you a role-playing experience in one book.
But I think the valuable thing to this, though, and this is why I think this is great for beginners and stuff, is that it does a lot of the scene setting and scripting for you, so that you don't have to try to imagine what's going on.
Exactly.
If you didn't know what role-playing was or how to role-play, if you didn't understand the concept behind it, and you looked at some of the more, I said numbers-based systems, more dungeon crawly ones that we're going to talk about in a little bit, you may run into a situation where you're like, okay, this is just like a weird dice game. I don't really understand what's going on and why they have to talk about, it being in a dungeon or whatnot. If you're not filling in that story yourself, you may not see it. But for these more scripted ones, it's telling you that story.
I think the other really great part about this is it's highly accessible. Highly accessible.
Oh, very accessible.
There are so many accessibility tools for books already on the market, be it Braille, be it reading, be it out loud text,
text speech, yeah,
large text, different fonts, getting it in a digital format so that you can alter what font is being displayed to you.
Sure.
All of that makes role-playing more accessible, and for that, it gets high marks every time.
Absolutely.
The next one that kind of fits in another niche of that is the journaling-based. Now, this, I want to say, really kind of came to a head just, I would say, in the last probably 10 to 15 years at the most.
This, I think, was my vague introduction to first-person games.
Okay.
Or one-player games, I should say. Because, like I said, I really didn't know anything about the genre before. And I mean, I wasn't thinking that, like, Choose Your Own Adventures are technically single-player role-playing games, you know? I wasn't thinking that. But, like, when we were... I think it was before we had actually formally interviewed Dr. Cox. You were telling me about the project he was working on with the 500-year-old vampire.
Yeah,
and how it was kind of a different version of 1,000-year-old vampire.
Yes.
And I was like, what's that? And so you told me, and like that was literally the first time. I mean, and I've been role playing since I was like 12.
Yeah.
You know, so that's 30 years I've been role playing,
and just never had heard of it.
Had never heard of single player games like this before. And you're like, oh yeah, it's a journaling thing. You know, it gives you prompts and you make decisions and you write little journal entries. And I'm like, that's cool. So this is, when coming into this discussion, I thought this right here was the entirety of it. And boy, how wrong I was.
Yeah, journaling, I will argue to say that my idea of what kicked off journaling roleplay in a large way was the internet, and early internet at that. Because you could have text-based correspondence roleplay where a storyteller could present you a very simple scene, and then you would reply in a narrative fashion of what was going on.
Oh yeah, we used to do that on we play it on Vampire the Masquerade Mush.
Yep.
Multi-user shared hallucination.
Yes.
Mush.
You had muds, moos, and mushes.
Yeah. Multi-user dungeons.
Multi-user dungeons object-oriented.
Yeah.
And then you had the mushes, which came out later.
Yep.
All text-based for the most part. There were some that gave a little way to graphics later, which really at that point were MMOs, as people know them today.
Very early MMOs, yeah.
But again, it was always a very simple prompt, and then the reply was something greater.
Yeah.
And often just accepted. And then a response was given back to that. And in that sense, those early games and oftentimes were just single-player roleplay with a storyteller element or not, a digital element that was presenting things. So since then, it has grown quite large. I won't even get into the itch.io tag list that had 800 to 1,000 listed in it.
Oh my god!
Just under journaling.
Yeah.
But there's I saw one that was presented, which was Broken Cask, which is where you're an innkeep and you're keeping track of adventurers who are coming in and writing things about it. But it's basically charts and writing. That's it.
Yeah.
That's your role play. Colossal is another one where you're traversing a world-sized castle.
This one looked so cool. There were a couple in this list that really tickled my fancy. Colossal was one of them.
Yeah.
And it's spelled, by the way, if it does tickle your fancies while you're looking into this, it's not colossal. It's COLOSTLE.
Took me a while to make sure I spelled that right.
It's a mix of the words colossal and castle.
Yep. And again, it just uses a standard deck of cards. If you bought the box set, it came with a special deck
with some real cute artwork on it. Yeah.
But again, it was just a standard deck of cards and a book, and that's it. You can still get the book online, I believe, through RPG. But effectively, you're just journaling your way through it and how you handle those situations. Another one that's even in that same genre is Ronin, which is a simple book with, I think, a 2d6 methodology, and it's just situations that your Ronin keeps going into.
Yeah.
Whether a place that then has an action, that then has a whatever, that it basically creates effectively the MacGuffin in situation.
You can write your own samurai drama.
It's exactly what it is.
Yep.
And I think that's wonderful. And again, you can go on itch.io and find hundreds of these. Find your flavor, find everything. I think the keys to this one is it's a bit more than the previous because it's definitely more open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
You now have a lot more choice. The story doesn't necessarily always direct you to what you should do. In most cases, it leaves it quite open. But there's also no stats or advancement, so a lot of the crunch is pulled from you. But it is bringing you back to the focus of roleplay, that this is your character with your choices. But at the same regard, you're also kind of given more storyteller choices as that player. Since it is your game, you can make adjustments and push through and really kind of have a full novella that you're writing.
Yeah, sure.
Like a biography or biographical novella, which again, I will argue that this may teach new players how to keep good notes, but it does it in a fun way.
Yeah,
you know, and shows worlds that other people have made, like a castle the size of a world. Like that concept is just unique,
right,
and wonderful,
right.
I tried to attach it to like Laputa, Castle in the Sky.
Oh, Laputa, yeah.
And like nothing was really coming to mind except for something more like Discworld, even like if that was a castle unto itself. You know, amazing.
It's turtles all the way down.
It's funnily... Well, no, it's not turtles all the way down. There are some elephants in there. The next step up from that really is where I think the genre sits today, is where this breakpoint is, and that is the self-contained systems. They don't need anything else for them. They are their own box sets. Like Rad Zone is a apocalyptic game that is listed as roll and write or print and play.
This is another one that I was like, oh, I've got to get my hands on that.
Again, super inexpensive too.
Yeah, right.
All these are very accessible.
And it's just like it's post-apocalyptic. You know, I mean, Rad Zone. I mean, what do you think? You know, it's basically the Fallout role-playing game. You know, but single player. And
but it is a full role-playing game.
Yeah.
Four Against the Darkness is another one where you're playing a group of adventurers, in fact.
Yeah, like a Scooby Squad, basically.
Exactly. The difference is that this actually is a series of adventures that you play through. And so there is a bit of scripting as it walks through so it can continue novel to novel with your characters. But you keep your stats, you keep your gear, you keep your advancement. All of that is inclusive in this. And that brings you much, much closer to... classic tabletop sit down and play.
Yeah.
You know, again, you're opening with this design. Some of these games you're given some characters that you're then advancing. Something like a D100 dungeon, you're able to build. You're making your own character to do that, but it is literally a hex crawl game.
Yeah.
With a series of events and a world that is being built as you go.
Pull out your hex graph paper and, you know, and some regular old square graph paper. You might have to, like, draw some very little things, but, like, you're going to kind of create that world as you go, hex by hex, dungeon room by dungeon room.
Yep. There was one that was spoken highly of based upon its history and such, and that was Barbarian Prince. But a more recent one, Drifter, is a Western style. And these have much more, I guess, box game style design to them, where they have a full system, they have a full world that you're walking across. It is a sandbox, but it is finished. It is a finished world with finished pieces to it. It feels almost board game-like, because you're playing something that feels almost scripted as you move through the hexes.
Right.
But there is still some randomness within that gets created either through dice play or other elements like that, or event play.
Sure, absolutely. I think it was... I don't know if it was Barbarian Prince. One of the ones that we saw in there, I took note... I wish I'd written it down. I wasn't at my computer at the time when I watched it. It may have been Barbarian Prince, was actually by Kevin Crawford.
Yes.
You remember the name?
I do remember the name.
He stars without number.
Yes.
So, like, again, creeping back into... He's a very prolific author, you know?
All over the place.
Absolutely.
Literally all over the place. But these self-contained systems sit at definitely a more crunch level. For people who want to have a character, who want to have to see their stats, to see their advancement, to see a physical character sheet grow into something greater.
Yeah, you flip through one of these books, and you're, especially when you start getting away from the journaling and stuff like that, you start seeing a lot more charts. A lot more, and we're not talking small charts either. This isn't like roll a d6 and here are 6 options that came out of this. This is like roll a d100 or pick
roll
a
2d6,
yeah,
and each one is a value,
right, and then cross-reference them, or pick a card out of the deck, and this is one of 52 possibilities.
Right. Much larger charting, much larger follow through on that charting as well. So it gets you closer to OSR gaming on a personal level. So if you need that level of crunch, if you're already a tabletop gamer and you only want to take like one step back, this would be where I would say your footing should land.
Right. How do I play Dungeon Crawl Classics but by myself?
Yeah. And to a degree, I'd almost say, like, none of my friends want to play a Western game. What do I do?
Are you so sure? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I thought you were putting that upon me, and I'm like, no, I love it.
In your case, none of my friends want to play horror.
Yeah, that's
Lovecraftian horror. You could very easily go and grab Alone Against Fear and enjoy that system and have a good time with it.
Very much.
It is a lone wolf progressionary story, and that's perfect. And that's where I see this kind of fitting as our current state of like a step down. Now, I only say that it's a step down because you do not have a storyteller. The problem I see with this at this point in the crunch is that you're getting to the point where you probably need one, because charts can only make it feel so random. You're kind of in a Minecraft world where generation is going to be based upon a random number generator for every.
Yeah.
Like, I'm riding across on my horse in Minecraft. Oh, there are wolves here. Why are there wolves here? It's not because there's some food to eat. It's not because it's because you're in the right biome at the right time, and
it
they
randomly
generated them.
Yeah.
Now, are there 3 or 30? No one knows, but it could be. And the point is that it doesn't feel like a story. It feels just like an event occurred.
Right.
The story is still yours to generate. Now, the game does a bit more in saying why you're there or what your direction of going across that, unlike something like Minecraft where it's like, why am I going from point A to point B? Because I chose to. Versus, I'm going here because someone told me that in this other place there will be something waiting for me to do. Okay. Now I find wolves along the way. I have to survive in these various things. And when I get there, there are still tasks to complete based upon where I was. Okay, all of that makes sense. Now I can connect those dots and it becomes a story. But it still doesn't feel like there's crafting going on, because there, for all intents and purposes, isn't. That's where we step into tabletop role-playing systems with single-play options, or how Dungeon Dive kind of handled it. It was, they called it an overlay, and I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, we talk every so and then, especially like during our system spotlights, and I know you'd mentioned this during our Blades in the Dark system spotlight. That you said you looked at the system and you could almost play it single player.
There are options for it.
And right, and I'm sure there are. But this is exactly what we're talking about, is whether it's built right into the rule system itself, or whether it is an add-on to the system that shows you, okay, here's some alternate rules you should use to be able to do this single player. You can take an existing multiplayer game and pare it down to single player.
Yeah, and some systems have it. Morkborg has their own. And
it's called Solitary Defilement.
I know, it's clever.
Because of course it is.
Yeah. And a lot of these use this Oracle system, which is where basically you're answering very simple yes, no, or yes and, no but kind of responses to it to craft your story as you progress. And it becomes your de facto storyteller. And because it is system agnostic, it is primarily the narrative of the story. It is not looking to say X number of monsters with Y number of stats come and attack you based on this randomness. It is saying you have an encounter with something of this sort. And then the system dictates that. One of the things they have is Escape the City, which is a playing card version that is kind of scripted. City Crawl. They have rule sets for both Karn and D&D 5th edition in there. For its direct translation. Like, you can just play it in those systems for yourself.
Yeah. And I think, the fact that this is I think it's one of the only ones that we've seen here that is 5th edition compatible.
Yes.
And knowing the ubiquity of that system. This is a really great, it's called Escape the City. So if you are a 5th edition player, familiar with that rule set, looking to get into this, maybe Escape the City is something you want to look at.
Might give you some flavor to start with.
Yeah.
The second thing that I will say about this is there's nothing wrong with a predominant new storyteller, someone who's already been a player of 5th edition, who's looking to do storytelling, playing one of these, because it shows you what it takes at a very base level to have an adventure. It shows you all of the pieces that can go into it, and you can start getting a lot of the juices flowing in your mind for what you might want to do. And I use Escape from the City as an example, but there are just as many other genre themes and stories out there that are for a number of systems. So you can go from fantasy to sci-fi to investigative to punk to whatever. And there are single-player overlays for all of them, from kids on bikes all the way out.
Yeah.
And the point of this is that you can get to this level of depth, or you can still grab a system that is overlay-esque, like Fallen by Perplexing Runes. It is its own independent system, but detached within it is the complete Oracle system for it, to be able to play Fallen in something else that is 100% system agnostic, much like some of the other systems we saw where, like, I could just pull this system right out and use it in anything else.
Yeah, it's just a decision-making process, essentially.
Exactly. It's a narrative decision-making process that creates force, agitation, and a power and a disturbance in power. And that's all you need.
Yeah.
But it teaches you that. It teaches you the fine art of that, and you can play it to see how successful it is for you. And just through that, you are now starting to possess those basic skills of doing it. One of the things in glass making, and I know I've brought this up before and showed pictures of it, is that when you start out in glass making, one of the things they'll give you is a very simple thing to do over and over and over again. This is a common thing for any crafting practice. Lathe people will used to often do candlesticks until you can get it perfect. Now, perfection is with the eye of the beholder, but like your master would look at it and say, it meets the tolerances, good job. Now do it 9 times in a row.
Yeah.
Now you can do other things because you understand the process. There's no difference in this.
Yeah.
If you want to master craft, the truth is you either do it for a very long time and screw it up a lot, or you practice a lot. Any online game person who's making it big, anybody who's producing in doing media production, anyone who's done sales, anyone who does anything to a mastery level, gymnasts, other physical athletes, will tell you, well, how did you get so good at this? I practice. I do it 8 hours a day. I eat, breathe, sleep, see multiple other people, stay within the field. If you want to be a great storyteller, you gotta storytell. And that's hard to do. You need lots of tables. You need a lot of feedback. Sometimes the best feedback can be yourself when you're seeing something like this. So let these help be that guide for you to get better, to hone your skills, so that you can use these tool sets not as a crutch, but as a block to help you do it. In Fallen specifically, they had a very simple tool. In one side, it was a MacGuffin creator, and on the other side was basically the Oracle card, which would give you, I want to say there were like 9 charts on it that you could just quickly roll through to create an entire scenario. And it was on a single card that wasn't even 8.5 by 11.
Right.
And I looked at that and I said, why isn't that everywhere? Why don't they just hand those out at the store? Like, oh, you bought the DM's guide. Here, take this. You need this.
Right.
You don't know it. You need this.
It's dangerous to go alone. Take this.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, knit it. Put it on your wall. Whatever it takes. But the idea is that there's never been a time when any storyteller hasn't said, oh, crap, I'm dry. I don't know what to do next. And these things are just there, not to tell you what to do next, but they can.
Mm-hmm.
And in that alone, you'll go, oh, I don't want to do that, but that's okay, now I got it. And then your idea is gone. Now you're onto something.
Yeah.
And that's all you need is that tiny spark of inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, we talked a little bit about, you know, like, it actually kind of harkened back to the pregame here. We talked about Sean's game, you know, like that spark of inspiration for what my character was going to be was literally just because his brother posted on Discord, this is what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I've been toying with this idea. Wait a minute.
Yep, that's it. That's all you need sometimes.
Just that one extra little seed to just get thrown in there, and to, you know, that pebble tossed into the pond to disturb the surface, that just sends that one ripple that makes you see it differently. You know.
Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing that this particular genre also has built into it is the ability to take skirmish games and turn them into narrative games.
Mm-hmm.
One of the ones is the 5 Leagues from the Borderlands. There's also a sci-fi edition of it. But literally, its whole point is to help you pull a skirmish game into the story.
Yeah, no, this is kind of at the point where you start kind of blurring the lines between board game and role-playing game, you know? Mm-hmm. And you and I have had this discussion. I think we've had this discussion on the air, you know, a couple times too, about like, where is the distinction between a board game and a role-playing game, you know? And I think the answer ultimately is, I don't know, how into it are you?
Yeah, because you can't judge it solely by your decision-making choices, right? Because it's not. If you have multiple choices, you have agency. You may not have unlimited agency, and I dare say even in some people's D&D games you don't. In OSR, you very much don't have full agency.
Sure.
You know, in the traditional sense. So it's not just agency. It's not just you are playing a character, right? Because that is an aspect that's in a lot of things. That isn't necessarily role-playing, but it is the primary term of playing a role. And it isn't necessarily that, you know, it's open narrative with deep plots and things like that. That's not part of it. But all of those pieces pull together to generate what we know as role play.
Absolutely.
And I do feel that this very much blurs that point and makes you question it even more.
You know, at the end of the day, was a story told because of the random movement of these pieces, you know?
Right.
At the end of the day, can you tell me in narrative form what happened?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you know, this guy came in here and he did this and he did that, but then these other people didn't like that, so they went and they did this other... Okay, cool, you told a story.
Yeah.
That's role-playing.
Yeah.
You know?
Whereas, like, if I narrate a baseball game, that's not role-playing. I'm narrating a baseball game.
Yeah, you're just saying what happened, you know?
Correct.
But...
even if I say it in a cool way, it's still narrating a baseball game. There's still a specific path to go in, you know, and on it. But if I start talking about the pitcher's day before the game and after the game, what the outcome was, now I've created a narrative story, and you could say that could be role play in that sense. But the idea is that once you get to this point, the benefits obviously grow quite large. Something like Mythic, which is huge, but it's, again, system agnostic and is designed to basically slap on top of any existing system to make it GM-less, really helps with those kind of things and can, again, help a storyteller, you know, basically pocket play a game. They could run Mythic off on the side table here, if you will, while running D&D for a story and let it help tell the story if they didn't have all of the control. But they had some idea in their head of where they wanted things to go. That gives them the rest of the tool set that they need.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that I know people who went to work at a pizza place that was a chain and still made creative things. They had a tool set, they were told to do it a certain way, and yet they broke the rules every once in a while.
Sure.
Now they break the rules all the time at home because they know how to do it, because they were given a tool set to start with. There is nothing wrong with these training wheels at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Use them. Use your water wings. You got it. Right? So this is much more to the classic role play. This requires you to do a lot of work effort, and you can see the work effort required to do storytelling. And I think if you can get through this on your own, you can start stepping into that arena much more comfortably. And it's, I dare say it is the closest thing you can get, because, like in the case of Mythic, you are playing whatever system you wanted to play, be it Savage World, be it D&D, be it Cypher, be whatever. You can play it, and Mythic will be there to be your guide, to help you, to be that the silent storyteller pushing you in a direction.
Yep.
Just that simple.
Yep.
There were a few other... this was the broad sense of things. I'm not going to go into the detail, but there is nothing to say role-playing at a base level is not very different from tabletop gaming. Eldritch Horror is a great example of that, and Arkham Horror. They're card games that are a story that you're moving through.
Yeah,
that are different every time.
Eldritch Horror, I mean, it even has one-player rules for it.
Right.
I knew someone back in the day who played Eldritch Horror. Like, almost at any given time you talk to her would have a game of Eldritch Horror just set up in one of her rooms that she was going through, single player. And again, I mean, it's one of those. It's a board game, but like, every card has a narrative on it. Every, the board kind of does its own thing. It's you versus the board, So really, are you making the decisions for your character, and you're getting these stories to tell through the narration on the cards? Isn't that kind of a role-playing game,
It very much is.
Yeah.
It very much is. That's it. Like, it's... we could go into hyper detail and focus on some of these systems, and I really don't want to, because I don't feel we need to. I think by talking about the various grand terms, as we kind of broke them down, the game books, journaling, the self-contained, the systems, the overlays, all of those have benefits within them and bring you closer to it. But realistically, all of them are good. All of them are good ways to help people break into the genre. And so if you know somebody who wants to role play and like wants to be in one of your games, and you're considering adding them in, but you're concerned that they may not understand role playing, go get them a Choose Your Own Adventure book, hand it to them, see how they enjoy it.
Yeah.
Let them know that that's the opening values.
Yep.
And go from there.
Yep.
Or if they even said like, well, I enjoyed Skyrim, great. How about this?
Yeah.
And you give them the next step up from that. You give them a journaling game so that they're making their own decisions versus just following a quest line.
Yeah.
So we had some good questions.
We did have some good questions. Go ahead and grab one there.
I'll start with Nevin. What key elements is needed to change any game into a single player game? The very base thing that I would say is that you can say that by making it GM less, you are making it a scripted or randomed system, and you need to have that generation. You need to have something generating that for it.
Yeah. Whether it be the game book guiding you through it, or a number of charts and tables you can roll upon or draw cards through some sort of random production. Or heck, even if you want to, reach out to some of the AI creations that we've got going nowadays, some of those might be able to do that for you.
Very much so. Very much so. Second question was how to create compelling adversity in such games. This is where they vary pretty wildly.
Yeah.
There are some that are, again, very scripted stories that are moving in a specific direction. And in a scripted story, you will get the rise and falls, which are great. And the random chances for complete fate and failure. But the point of the matter is that the compelling adversity that you would normally find in a game is no different. The moment that you want to make something narrative is the moment that you are creating a plot device. And some of these systems do that. They create an act tree through random rolls. because they ask you for specific things, and they say, okay, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to feel like this? Boom. And it says, roll this, 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 and this, and put those together in a chain. There's your series of events.
And here's how you resolve the outcome to that, whatever the system is.
Yep.
Turn to this page, or...
Yep. And it's scripted, but you randomly generated that script.
Yeah.
But it knew what elements it needed to throw into each one of those pieces.
My answer for this is you create compelling adversity in any game, whether it is single player or multiplayer, the exact same way. And that is go find some trouble and to get into it.
That is true.
Charge headlong into danger, do something foolish, act against your logic, fight with your heart and not your head, those sort of things. Make bad decisions on purpose. Think of what your character would do, act impulsively rather than what you, a neutral, calm, objective, third-party observer to your character, decides you should do.
Leroy Jenkins.
Don't play optimally.
Yeah.
And I've said it before, no good story ever started with a salad.
I don't know, those commercials with the laughing women in it, I swear.
They're having a great time.
Yeah, that salad is good.
They really are having a great time.
All right, grab one.
All right, so Nifty Hat asks, do single-player games have similar moments to group tabletop RPG sessions where the mechanical or narrative moments come together in an exciting or unexpected way? If so, what primarily drives these moments to happen?
I will say the same thing I would say at a table. You, the player. The player always drives the moment. They see what they see in their mind's eye and start moving through it. It's really no different than reading a novel and getting into the character.
Yeah, I agree.
Once the tension is within you and you're attached to it. Horror movies do this all the time. They grab you and pull you in.
Yeah.
And the idea is like you're I love it's the woman in the theater. Don't go in there.
Right.
Like the moment that you're attached to your character and you're like, I'm gonna open the door, but I shouldn't open the door.
Oh, why am I doing this? This is stupid. This is stupid. This is stupid.
Idea. This is what my character would do. That's what you want. Those are compelling moments that draw you in because you are there, and that's what does it.
It's definitely the character buy-in. Even with some of your more like dungeon crawly random chart ones, like was it D100 dungeon or something like that, where it's just giving you a random dungeon crawl. Very very hex based, very mechanical. But like. Think about going through that and then, drawing like the same treasure card like 3 times in a row, and then thinking to yourself like, one person might be doing that and going, oh, it's the 3rd time I've gotten this. That's cool, blah, 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 blah. And they just go on with the story. But another person might look at that and go, clearly I am fated to have this card. I am now a knight of the golden sword because the golden sword keeps showing up,
Yeah.
Clearly it's an omen and you start seeking it out. It starts influencing your decisions because you're getting into the character that has had this experience rather than just, oh, the dice came up that number 3 times in a row.
Yeah. Or in the other case, you look at it and say, God, 4 other people from the golden sword died here and left their swords. Somebody really wants us dead.
Right, yeah, or something like that. But once you start writing that story in your head, once you start looking at the random tosses of dice or draws of cards or whatever, and going, there's a reason for this. If only in my head I'm seeing a story unfold, that's where you get those moments. It's that buy-in. It's allowing yourself to do that.
Yep, very much so. There's one more here. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. You're
breathing in. I was like, go ahead.
Group games, I do that 50% of the time. If I'm not doing in, I'm usually doing out.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Group games have some common understood systems that drive design in them, like Powered by the Apocalypse, OSR, Forged in the Dark, and No Dice, No Masters. Does the single-player game space have a common popular systems that people use as a basis for design?
I'm going to say
no.
No.
I'm going to say every single one of these that we've seen is in some way at least unique.
Yeah, I would say the closest thing you get is the some of the MacGuffin designs for the steps to create the adventure or to create the scenarios are very formulaic because they're story formulaic.
Yeah.
Who's the problem? what's the crux, what's the complication, what's the end desire. And, like, okay, there's your 4 things. Generate those randomly and you will always get something cool. It is a group of elves who are stuck on a bridge, who have wolves on the other side, and they're trying to save a village. Boom. There's an adventure. Have a nice day.
Yep.
You know, but that's the common kind of theme. And again, looking at these, you quickly recognize what you need to build an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
If you can see the common thread, it is just story thread. There's really nothing unique about that. But until you've done it 12.5 times, your brain goes, oh, that's what it is. Shit, that was simple. And the answer is, it is, once you're attached to it.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Subjet asks, it seems that the basis of role-playing is a storyteller and participants. How can role-playing be done solo? I will dare say that our brains are capable of creating multiple layers of ourselves. If you can role-play in an imaginary way one person, you can role-play in an imaginary way something that helps you with that.
And I dare say that any storyteller, the moment you have more than one NPC in a scene, you're already doing that.
Also, straight up, don't build your own PC characters and put them in the game. This is not what we're teaching you to do here. I'm just being clear. That is not what we're teaching out of this.
This is not a lesson on DMPCs.
Yes. Straight up, don't do that. Mm-hmm. Don't do that. If you're playing a tabletop game with other people in the game, do not play with them.
Right.
Don't do it. You're already playing with them. You're the storyteller. Remember that. That is not what we're saying here. But I will say, I agree with that statement that you are participating and writing together and discovering. And I see no difference in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is still a creative process. And then 22 Bebo squeezed one in at the end here.
Of the single-player games that you have played or looked into, which was your favorite and why?
You had listed one you really were interested in earlier.
I think Rad Zone looked really super cool to me.
Okay.
I'm a longtime fan of the Fallout series. And when I say longtime fan, I mean Fallout 1. Right. Mm-hmm. I have liked each progressive game less. So,
right.
Fallout 4 being my least favorite of the mainline series. Of course, New Vegas. I mean, as a transgender woman, I'm obligated to like New Vegas. So,
right.
There's but strangely enough, though, as much of a fan of the series as I am, I've never actually played a post-apocalyptic role-playing game before. Like,
really?
At a tabletop, I mean.
Okay.
You know? It's just never come up. For our groups, it's usually either been, contemporary fantasy like World of Darkness, or it has been some brand of heroic fantasy like D&D. Those have consumed probably 85% of my entire gaming life right there, you know?
Yeah.
And then the few other games that we did get to play, I played a little bit of Shadowrun. Here and there.
Mm-hmm.
BattleTech obviously was my bread and butter for a good hot second there.
I mean, dare say that's post-apocalyptic. Really, really post though, like far post.
Like the apocalypses just kind of keep happening, yes. And but never in that classic sense of like Mad Max, blasted wasteland, doof wagon, gas masks, and cobbled together pipe guns,
Tank Girl, yeah.
Yeah, there's never been Tank Girl. And I've always been fascinated by it. Mm-hmm. And so seeing that there is a comprehensive and flipping through the book and stuff like that, it looked really like I didn't get into the book or anything like that, but it looked really well put together. Looked like it had some good artwork, some good layout and stuff like that. Very enticing as a product goes. Mm-hmm. And knowing that I don't have to wrangle a group for that.
Nope.
Would be great. Mm-hmm. So, I think Rad Zone probably scratched that itch, at least on the surface. I am absolutely judging a book by its cover here.
Mm-hmm. That's what they're there for, by the way.
Well,
both front and back.
Right.
I think for me, when I started seeing Escape from the City, it intrigued me as a storyteller. Like, okay, this is an overlay, but it's a general overlay for fantasy. Okay, this could be interesting. I'd be interested in seeing how this differs from a standard D&D adventure, right? Because now you don't have the conflicts as like the crux points. Mm-hmm. it's generalized. Same with Fallen. I was very interested in how Fallen did its story generation. Because I wanted to see how that came together. So both of those really intrigued me. And again, not expensive, not hard to get into.
Yeah.
Easy to understand, very straightforward. And it made me think like, okay, these are going to be even experienced storytellers. How much can you pull out of these as a discovery method? And for me, I'm probably going to pick up Fallen because it's $10. Like all a $10 hairs,
exactly.
gives you a ton of stuff.
Exactly.
I'll take it.
You've paid more for less.
I have.
Yeah.
Dark Souls. Why Dark Souls? Just
because we needed it for the show.
We needed it for the show.
Because we needed it for the show.
Why? But yeah, I would say out of what we did Discovery on, those really intrigued me, and I'll probably pick those up and do some diving on those just to see how I feel about them. Maybe we should each pick one of these up and in a couple months come back.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
That could be fun. I'll pick up Red Zone. You pick up Fallen probably. And...
Yeah, I'll probably pick up Fallen because it's got a bit more to it.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that would be fun. And we'll come back and give you guys a review of what we discovered.
See, it's either gonna be Red Zone or Drifter. I think Drifter and Ronin also looked really good to me.
I think Ronin you'd like way more.
I'd really like Ronin, probably a lot more than Drifter.
Yeah, I think Drifter's
cool.
Drifter's big. There's a lot in Drifter going on. So I'm going to open a little time here to talk about this because next week we are doing a pre-recorded show.
Yeah.
By one day, so it's just a little early, because we have two guests. Now we've talked about this a little bit ahead of time, and obviously we can announce it a little bit more now. Next week's show, which we kind of preambled, was from the previous one about advancement, is what does it mean to the story when your characters level? So going from level 1 to level 5. How does that interact with the plot?
And what happens if they start out-leveling your plot from a power standpoint? What if your power curve breaks your plot?
Yeah. And does it? Really?
Or does it? Yeah, exactly.
So we had we were reached out to by two authors, and we were very kind of excited as we started talking with them about different topics. This one came up. They are creators of a common world that they write in, and have a number of novels. And this is Autumn Burt and Jesper Smith. They are both outside of the country, which is why we have to adjust our times. We're actually recording this
at like 4 p.m. because it's way late for
like
Jesper.
10 or 11 for Jesper, and God thank that man for doing this. I mean, he said he's used to the time shift because he's often doing stuff with Americans, and I appreciate every moment of it. But
keeping that man up past his bedtime.
Yeah, so if you hear a little yawning going on during the record of that show,
be kind to him.
Please be kind.
Yeah.
We will be pre-recording it. We will be releasing it on Wednesday after edit. And get that out, but it'll be pretty raw. I don't expect that show to have pretty much any edits in it unless we have some problems with getting them connected. But be looking forward to that on Wednesday. I'll try and release that as close as I can to our normal recording time so everybody can enjoy it. If you wanted to listen live, you can do that. I might throw a link out there for our Patreon members to possibly listen in on the recording. So be looking for that at around 4 o'clock on Tuesday of next week if you'd like to join us. Beyond that, we've got some other exciting shows coming up that are where we have another guest, and we have some other content that was sent to us that was a topic that I didn't expect as far as doing a system spotlight on it. So I'm kind of excited to do that one as well. Anything else you want to add to this one?
No, I think we're good.
Awesome.
Put it to bed.
I will let you close us out here, Sarah.
Alrighty, well, you can find us on Twitter at st_conclave, on Instagram at st_conclave. Listen to us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on mixlr.com/storyteller-conclave. And join us up on our Discord. We'd love to hear from you. Join the discussion with our great other storytellers on there. Bounce campaign ideas. Shoot us some show questions. We'll answer them here on the air, as you've heard. You can find that link on our Twitter, as well as our website, storytellerconclave.com.
We'd like to thank all of our Patreon members who support us every single month, especially our name members, Knox in the Box, Subjet, The Arcane Asylum, Veteran, Hulavu, Sam, Sean, and Sparkle Motion. We truly appreciate all of your support. Our pre-show music is by Arcane Anthems. You can find them on patreon.com/arcaneanthems or on Instagram at Arcane Anthems. Our intro music is Beyond the Warriors by Geefrog. You can find that at geefrog.bandcamp.com or on Google Music. And our outro music is Only Our Footprints in the Sand by Midair Machine. You can find them at freemusicarchive.org.
Big shout out as always to our families, Vicky and Sean. Thank you so much for living and supporting us. All of our friends who've sat beside our tables over the years to give these great stories to share with you. And you, every single one of our listeners. We love you guys so much.
Love you guys.
Good night.
Good night.